from Austin, Texas to Essex, England. Once again, it's the Lip Lean podcast. It's the Lip Lean podcast. It's the Lip Lean podcast.
Lip Lean podcast with Lewis Hamilton and Lax Verstappen. Normal land.
Laxative versus slapping. Laxative versus slapping. That's actually, it's not even a race driver. It's a new rapper. That is on the scene. Have you heard of him? Laxative.
Yeah, he's a new experimental guy. I heard he's mixing Donda actually for Kanye.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he did a track with Kenny Beats called Bend. Yeah, called Silverstone Gravel. It's great. It's like a rootsy track. But once it gets going, man, it really spins. You know. So
you could so make a cool diss track with Formula One names. Like
you could
Cop Send featuring Max, etc.
That's basically how I want to title every episode. I think that's what I'm going for at this point, is just diss track names for each episode name. So for this one, it'll be like Bargeboards and Bot's ass.
I like
something
that.
like that. I don't. I feel like the bot ass is too. That's too on the nose. You know. It's a little too on the nose. It's not really my style. I like to go subversive with the diss track names.
Our next sort of creative adventure is a Formula One themed rap album, like Good Kid, Max City, or something like that.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great, man. That's probably should be one of the things with the Hamilton Initiative or the commission is just make everybody listen to hip hop records, and then racism solved in a week. Everybody takes in, some good hip hop albums. So
going to uni, I was flooded with like white middle class boys that listen to like, I don't know, one Mobb Deep record and all of a sudden think they understand 100 years of racial tensions, and no guys, I can't be racist. I listen to Kanye. Sort of,
they're onto something there. I mean, they're onto something. They need to listen to more of them. But I feel like if they're onto something, it's like, okay, cool, good start. Now listen to Good Kid, Mad City all the way through, and then like listen to the story he's telling. Oh, all of a sudden you have like 87,000 times more empathy than you did before you listen to that record, because you're like, oh, this is crazy. This is actually a story about growing up in a certain place. So it's pretty wild. Anyway, episode 012 with our Spike Lee introduction, and man, I'm doing good. We tried to do this episode last night, and first of all, my internet connection was bad, and then I ate a 12-inch double meat roast beef capicola and turkey sandwich with hot peppers, oil and vinegar, double pepper jack cheese, and then thought I could do a podcast after that. So that's my level of hubris, is I can ingest that much food and then think I'll be witty enough to host an internationally renowned podcast, because we're internationally renowned at this point. We have listeners in the UK and the United States. Somebody in Brisbane's listening. I don't know who that is, but it's happening. So internationally renowned. And that's just that. It was a humbling experience, because we got on the horn and started it, and I was just like, yeah, whatever, Hungary, and then like tried to fall asleep, I guess, and then we lost our connection. So,
take two. We had to red flag the first podcast, which is quite apt. Given
we literally red flagged it. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, so red flag race, and then red flag this podcast. Started again 12 hours later, and you're gonna have a good result, man. Tell me, this podcast is like this race is like 9/11 for F1 races, where it's like, where were you in Hungary 2021? Like, where were you when this happened? Because that was insane. I'm getting to watch these races live now, which is fun, because I wake up early enough, and because I got the big boy job, so I actually wake up at this point, and it's fun, man. It's fun to watch live. I don't think you were watching live, right? Like you were watching a little later in the day.
So like my whole family are into F1, and sort of myself. I mean, obviously I'm a massive nerd about it. If you're listening to this podcast, I have a podcast about F1. I'm a massive nerd about it. My sister and my dad.
In case you didn't know.
Oh, my camera's slipping. Sorry. Technical difficulties.
Just go with the torso view, just
do the whole thing. Like,
yeah,
POV,
you've been working bench press anyway. So,
stop it, you.
It's all good.
So my dad and my sister are quite into it. Sort of not all the full technicalities, but still sort of enjoy the sport. Yeah. And then there's my mum, who enjoys the spectacle, but doesn't really have a clue what's going on. And every time Crofty says any sort of anecdote or anything, if you don't catch the whole sentence, they have to rewind the TV to listen to the whole thing. Yeah. So we start the race on time and we end up like half an hour behind, which is infuriating when you're watching it with someone like on your phone. It's the worst.
Yeah, it's like watching a Christopher Nolan film with my mom, that's the same thing. And so watching Inception with my mom for the first time, or Interstellar, was essentially the same experience. So I definitely relate to that. And what did McConaughey say? What did Matthew say just now? Is he talking about? So he's talking about this time-space continuum. Is that what that's about? Was that on the Jetsons? I don't know what's going on. My mom actually doesn't my mom doesn't speak like that. She's a wonderful woman and does not have an accent that sounds like Peggy Hill. So not that that's bad, but I'm just to differentiate.
Shout
out to Peggy Hill. So anyway, man, yeah, dude, that was just wild, dude. I was so blood red mad seeing turn one, even though like the last few weeks I've like lost a little bit of my like mojo for supporting Red Bull in this championship. And I don't know what it was. I started off really happy and like really jazzed about Red Bull and their upgrades and stuff like that. But something about like the way they've done their social media and stuff in like the last couple of weeks. And like, I don't know, it just kind of gives me a weird vibe. It's not like I'm not cheering for them. And I'm overall like I like the Honda engines. I'm just a fan of those engines. So like, I'm kind of a fan of them by proxy. But like, I don't know, man. It's been a weird few weeks for Red Bull. And then to top it off, unfortunately, you've got these crashes. And I saw something, an infographic the other day on the F1 Reddit, where Laxative Verstappen has like $3 million or something damage to his car so far, compared to Lewis's like $660,000. Yeah, I don't know if that's in USD or whatever, but obviously it's pretty similar either way. But like that's a lot of damage and a lot of problems to deal with. And so you have that on turn one, and it was just absolute chaos. Like, what were your initial reactions when you saw turn one, and what did you say? Did you say anything out loud?
No, I was in stunned silence. It was like, I mean, so for the next, I think maybe this race and one more, I wouldn't be against Lewis Hamilton winning, because I think Max clearly before Silverstone had the stronger package, was sort of leading the way comfortably. And I think Lewis needs a bit of a head start for there to be a close title fight. Yeah. But I also want to see, Max's build as the greatest driver's generation. And I don't think that's an unfair title to give him. But a lot of Formula One is far less about being the fastest driver and far more about sort of having that intangible sort of mental strength, that winner's mentality. And I want to see him under pressure pull results out the bag, like a champion will. And I think we won't see that until Lewis is ahead. So in that way, I was glad that Lewis sort of, you'd think, would have an easier run in this race, but obviously that wasn't the case.
I think Lewis has the mental advantage, definitely. Yeah. Max might be hungrier, but Lewis is able to get into people's heads in a way that you don't see a lot. You probably saw it a lot with like Schumacher and Alonso, maybe to an extent with his mid-2000s jaunt into the championship circle. But Lewis is a driver that has this ability to get into your head when you see him behind you, because of his reputation, because of his accomplishments, because of the fact he's a 7-time world champion, and there's good reason for that. despite the fact that he drives a spaceship, he's still an amazing driver. We saw that on full display Sunday with his recovery drive, which was incredible. And so obviously only certain drivers are able to kind of go toe to toe with them, Max being one of them. But can he last this entire season and pull out what we need to see in order to be a championship like that? And I don't know, man. I don't know at this point. I don't know, especially after Silverstone, especially after, not that Hungary was really his fault at all. But Silverstone, he definitely could have approached that corner a little better. And definitely there was patience to be had in Silverstone. It's not like he just needed to do that immediately. So, we'll see, man. I think he's just hungrier, and it's like, can he keep that under wraps, and eat himself a Snickers bar? So he's not just hangry all the time, or hungry all the time, I guess. And keep it under control, man. So, that's a great kind of thing to keep in mind. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's really going to come down to mental game at this point. It's similar to golf in that way, where it's just like, how strong is your mind? I guess a lot of professional sports, and really pretty much, if we're being honest, any professional sport at that level, your mental game just has to be perfect or nearly perfect, or else you're donezo, man. But that was, dude, what was weird about that was seeing Bottas miss his braking zone like that. And partially it was because of Norris whipping in front of him, but also you're veteran, you're a Formula One veteran, know where your braking zones are. I feel like I don't think Norris was that wrong in saying, like, we're up there with the greatest drivers in the world. You should be able to know where your braking zones are, regardless of how close I am in front of you. And so that was just bizarre, man. It was bizarre to see him gaff like that. And then ruin and just go bowling with Bottas, basically.
Yeah.
Bowling with Bargeboard, bowling with Bottas. I guess that might be the
in
new
Budapest.
In Budapest, Bargeboard, bowling with Bottas. Is that the episode title? Should we go with that? Because that's
I don't know. Is there Spotify restrictions on how many B's you can have on one?
No, or like how much alliteration? Is there like alliteration? Is there alliteration caps on Spotify? Yeah.
Are there text-to-speech software out there that we're just going to break?
that would just break it. So we've come across this algorithm with this internationally renowned Formula One podcast. There's 17 P's in this title. It's like, scrap it. We can't have that. Can't have that going on.
That's actually, you ever seen The Imitation Game, the film about the Enigma machine, about the code breakers in World War II?
Oh,
it's actually the sequel is just them trying to figure out how text-to-speech can say 6 B's in one sentence.
That's it. And it's just run with our podcast title. I read a book once called Code. I think it was called Code Masters. Not Code Masters. That's the name of the game. That the developers for the game, but it was like Code something. And it was written by a really good author. It was 10 years ago, but it was about that topic. And it made me unafraid of math for like the first time in my life. I was talking about the code breakers and stuff like that. So when they broke it down, anyway, read that book if you want. Don't know the title of it, but figure it out. But yeah, man, seeing Bottas do that was bizarre. It stunned me too. I had like a bite of food ready to eat. Like I was eating breakfast while I was watching turn one, and it like fell out of my fork and then like onto the floor, and the dog ate it. I was like, oh
man, that sucks.
What's going on? So it was a whole moment, man. We all shared a moment. Me and the dogs like just stunned. So they were stunned because they got such a good bite of food on the floor. I was stunned because I was watching turn one of this race. And dude, it was so crazy to see Ricardo almost take P2 and then just get shellacked by Chuck Leclerc, And so, and then so you're just like, God, man, he's just Rick rolling himself,
Yeah, it's such a shame for Danny Rick, because sometimes when you're having a really tough time, you need those lucky breaks. If he'd have made it through turn one in second place, it wouldn't have been a great deal of sort of craftsmanship. It would have been basically the sea parted ahead of him like Moses, and he found the gap. But I think that would have done him the world of good for his confidence. But instead, did you see the video of him getting out his car in Parc Ferme, the guy looked devastated. I don't remember, not even devastated, but sort of defeated. Like he didn't know what else to fix.
Yeah. I think there was like the Titanic fiddle music playing in the background. You know, it's just, I don't know if it was there. I was just hearing it while I was watching that whole video of him, just like the whole act of resignation of just the helmet on the halo and just kind of like laying there, just like, I wrecked a car in my driveway once when I was like 16 and I just learned how to drive.
Oh no.
And it was a big Suburban and my house at the time had these like pillars in the front porch, like a country style house. And I was just learning to drive and I whipped the steering wheel around on this big Suburban too quick and somehow ended up with the back end on the porch and that corner pillar of our house in the front lawn. And so for 10 minutes straight, man, I just sat there with the engine running and my head on the steering wheel. And that's all I could think of when I watched Ricardo just like on the halo, just like so sad. And I'm just like, oh man, this is crazy. He's just such a likable guy and you don't want to see a driver like that go through a slump. But the reality of this sport is if you're fast, you're fast. And if you're having problems, you're having problems and the results are right there. They're right in front of your face. They're going to catch up with you. And it just seems like he hasn't found his confidence and his grip, no pun intended, with this McLaren car. And it's wild to see, especially just juxtaposed against Lando, who has like definitely found his stride in this car and is just crushing it. You know, so it's really wild to see both of those things going on at the same time. You got to know that Andres is a little frustrated. You got to know that Zach Brown probably wasn't expecting things like this from Danny Ricciardo, from a guy who is a race winner. I mean, I don't know if he's championship caliber at this point. Let's be honest. I don't see Ricciardo winning a championship in the rest of his career, but you definitely expect him to be up there, you know, fighting with good old Lando Calrissian. So it's crazy to see, man. It's sad, but what are you going to do? Listen, summer break's coming up. What do you think he should do on a summer break? That's the question. What should Daniel Ricciardo do on his summer break? Like, what's the montage over the summer break that he does in the movie to bring him back for the second half of the season? You know?
Well, I saw him talking to a Dutch journalist. And they were like, oh, fancy going to Zandvoort for a while and practicing. He was like, no, I can't. There's drug tested F1. Like, he's pretty just open about what he wants to do.
Okay.
But he's not, okay, fair enough, dude. I mean,
yeah. All right. Well, okay.
I could see Daniel Ricciardo like going away to like a monastery, like a monk's monastery for like 4 weeks and just completely resetting. And then you ever seen Ace Ventura, Pet Detective? This is
absolutely. Yeah.
You know, when he goes away to that monastery to try and like center himself and then he comes back to the quirky character. That's going to be Daniel Ricciardo at Spa.
Right. Yeah, definitely. With all the parrots and stuff like around his head.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think he's going to do like a training montage on his ranch. And, you know, because he can't go anywhere else because of the lockdowns in Australia. So he's going to go back to his ranch. All right. He's going to regroup. His trainer is going to be there. And maybe Crocodile Dundee shows up as like an inspirational character. And he's like, look, mate, you either going to do this or not. You know, what are you going to do? Are we going to do another shoey this year? Are you going to sit back on your halo, you know, leading your head down, things like that. And then he's like, and then Rick's going to be like, you're right. All right, let's go. Let's do this. And then he starts lifting car doors and stuff like that. And then like AC/DC starts, but AC/DC was Australian, right?
Oh, I've got no clue.
I think so. Let's go with it. Let's say AC/DC was Australian because I don't know if
they were British. Yeah,
they
or
were.
At least
Were they British? Some of them were Australian. So AC/DC is appropriate. AC/DC back in black starts blasting. All right. He's boxing kangaroos. All right. He's like kickboxing kangaroos, comes back, you know, he's got the car doors. He's like running through the sand. He's like eating huntsman spiders. He's like biting the huntsman spiders' heads off and like drinking the blood for energy. And then he comes back. What's the next race? Zandvoort?
Spa.
Oh, and then Spa. Yeah. And then he just crushes Spa, you know.
I could see
solid P6.
Crocodile Dundee there is like pointing at him like, that's not a McLaren driver, that's a McLaren driver. And it's like a cardboard car Orlando. Just for added, and just throwing darts at him the whole 4 weeks.
Yeah. He's just got a secret seething hatred for Lando. And the kid's like way younger than him, you know?
I think of all the drivers to be beat by as a teammate, I think Lando Norris has got to be one of the hardest ones, because like it's so tough to see such a kid that's chilling and not really trying as much and almost having a laugh at that one beat you. It feels almost effortless when Lando Norris does it, which must just rub it in so much for a seasoned pro like Daniel. Yeah.
But the restart though was just insane. So the turn one happened. Everything happened with Ricardo that you noticed. And then the restart, you're just like, okay, now what is going on? And you have one car left on the grid starting. And then everybody starting from the pit lane, that whole jabroni stuff with George Russell and the pit lane restart. He had to like give a bunch of spots back. I was just like, dude, I just felt like emotionally tossed, you know? I was just like, this thing took me from one end to the other. And I don't know, man. I just felt like I was a passenger in a ship of emotion is what I felt like. It was just wild.
Yeah, it was a very allegorically, I felt sort of like Lando Norris, and the race was just hitting you from one side to the other with a different emotional blow. And by the end of it, you realize you can't do anything about it. You're just along for the ride. But that's why we love the sport, I guess. The weird, strange races where racing doesn't happen for a large part of it, you know?
Yeah. And of course, I mean, we could go into the restart stuff forever. It was odd. It was just a crazy thing to see one car on that grid. But what I did want to touch on with that briefly was, did Mercedes not? So you're telling me like Mercedes Formula One team, Mercedes AMG Petronas Formula One team didn't anticipate the need to pit for slicks at all? So I think what it was, and I was thinking about this since yesterday when we talked about it briefly, is when you're on an outlap, right, from either a red flag or whatever, so you could radio the pit wall, but they can't respond to you. Isn't that the case?
Normally, yes, but this wasn't a formation lap. This was a lap of the race. Like technically, it counts as a lap of the race. But what's really strange is Bono and Lewis in the transcript. Lewis is literally sort of saying to Bono, right, 2's dry, 3 dry, 4 dry, and he's calling out the corners, and they are dry. And I think Mercedes thought there was rain coming, and that's why they didn't box him. But even if they didn't want to, well, that's what Mercedes thought. But surely, if Mercedes thought it was, everyone else would have. And even if they did think it was going to rain, Lewis was, I mean, all his competitors were out the race, essentially. Lewis was at the front of the field. Why take the risk of doing different to everyone else? If he'd have put on the inters and then, if he'd have put on slicks and then realised it would have been inter conditions, then you just change like everyone else and you're still at the front of the grid. Worst case scenario, you have, 3-4 cars who took a gamble to pass. I just don't understand why Mercedes took the risk. And it's one of a set of uncharacteristic mistakes from Mercedes this season, you know, all the way from Bottas's tyres in Monaco to leaving on the magic in Baku to Lewis's setup in Monaco. Just really strange.
Just weird stuff, like weird mistakes you wouldn't think would happen are happening this year. And that's where Drive to Survive jades me. All right. That's like, look, I'm a Drive to Survive fan. I came to the sport from watching that show, but I got to admit 90% of Drive to Survive fans are just like drama fetishizing, and they're not really into the sport, and they just make Twitter accounts because it's trendy and then talk about like the stupid drama stuff and then never talk about the actual races. So that's my main gripe with Drive to Survive. And my second one is that I feel like, and this is my Alex Jones moment. All right. Put on your tinfoil hat. You got a tinfoil hat over there. Put it on. I feel like
I'll go with my Elton John glasses. That's what
put your Elton John glasses on. All right. So it'll be like a John Carpenter's They Lived. Now you can see the real truth, right? So you put on your glasses, and I'll do the same. Look, I'll do the same for this. All right. we'll switch glasses. And now you can see the truth, which is the truth here is that maybe Mercedes is making these calls and maybe some of this stuff's happening to make Drive to Survive better, to do it, to juice it up for the cameras. What if they're doing that? What if they're juicing this stuff up for the cameras? You know, because like, why else would a 7-time world champion, someone that experienced with a team that good and that smart with access to all their data, make a mistake like that? You know?
Oh, do you see? You say that. I say that's crazy, but why on earth would they do that? I just think they couldn't get away with it. I think Bernie Ecclestone would love to get away with it. If this is Bernie, he would love to do this. I just don't think you could get away with it. But boy, I mean, if Formula One is scripted,
dude,
do you care that much? Because it's fun to watch. I mean, it might not be as pure, but it's,
you know.
So I don't think it is scripted. For the record, I don't think it is. But I mean,
maybe is it?
If the sport's fun to watch, then I'm getting my conspiracy theory glasses off now. These are my anti-5G glasses. But,
I'm keeping mine on for a little bit because I want to explore. Let's explore this. You know, let's go down the rabbit hole. So
why not?
No, I'll take yours. Look, we can't have one on. So
Nick Latifi is a reptile. Yeah, that's the next thing. Turn to the goddamn frogs.
We have the documents. Okay, we have the documents. All right. I have the documents about Hungary. I've got the documents on Silverstone.
It's literally in the name. Jova Nazi. Okay, listen. It's goddamn.
You look at Istanbul Park, there's a pyramid on the top of the pit lane, okay? There's a pyramid. They glued a crystal skull to the top of the pit lane in Istanbul Park, all right? What does that mean? Globalists, that's what that means. Globalists, Satanists are trying to take over the sport, all right? We won't stand for it. Me, Alex Jones, will not stand for it. So, but yeah, man, it was just a strange mistake. And then you see this multiple times a season, and you're just like, what is going on with this team, man? So I don't know, man. Is it maybe their bone marrow is being thinned out because Red Bull is poaching so many top talent figures from that team? I don't know if that's immediate though. I don't know if they're immediately going over to Red Bull. So I think there's a lot of the same personnel still there this year, right? So it's like, I don't know, man. It just kind of makes you wonder. But then we had that happen. So we're like, okay, cool. Hamilton's last again. And then he's on slicks. Now he has clear air. So cool. It's hammer time. And I love MC Hammer. Don't like hammer time when it's for Hamilton, and I want somebody else to win. So, you know, the whole race, just like anxious, you know, just like, okay, cool. Mercedes clear air. That's all that car was built for. He's going to be just blitzing, you know, the whole time. And so of course he is. Of course he makes up all these spots. He finally gets to Alonso. And then we have like some of the best wheel-to-wheel racing I've ever seen, maybe in my entire year and a half of being a diehard fan of this sport. And it was some of the most fun racing to watch just ever, man. It was just a delight. I've got a masterclass channel that I subscribe to, and I watch a bunch of masterclass stuff, how to make film, how to write stories. And I feel like they should put this on masterclass.com as like a channel. And it's just like those 14 races. And you're just like, hey, you want to be good at sim racing or just racing in general? Watch this. And then you'll learn everything you need to know. And you're like, okay. And so, yeah, man, it was just insane. If you're a racing fan, a race purist by any means, that was just maybe the highlight of the whole day, was getting to see a world champion go up against a world champion. And not only that, but somebody who had history with the guy. I think you said 07 or 08 is when they were.
Yeah, 07, because he dipped. He dipped to, I think, Ferrari might have been, and Hecky come to McLaren, and then obviously Lewis won the title. Is that Glock going slowly? It is. My Martin Brundle needs work, but
every time I see, I don't know if Brundle was doing this commentary back in the late 2000s, but just whoever was doing it, and every time they said his name is Kovalainen, it's like, okay, dude. I don't know why, but just like say that again. You know, it's just so fun to listen to. But yeah, man. They had Alonso with the experience of course, there's history there, and then Alonso had that weird interview comment later after the race where it's just like, yeah, I mean, it would help Max out. So, and I don't know if he meant to say Esteban, but he said Max. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because he was like, yeah, I knew Max was struggling, so I held Hamilton up or something like that. Do you like?
Wow.
So did you hear that? Alonso said something to like it helps Max out or something. I don't have the exact quote. I probably should have looked it up before I started this, but he said something to the effect of, you could find it. And I don't know if, again, with my tinfoil hat, I don't know if this is deep fake or not, but like he said something to the effect of like, if I could hold Lewis up as long as possible, it would help Max. And I don't know if he was talking about Max or maybe after a race, because, it's after a 70 lap race, maybe your vocabulary is not all taught to trot. He just meant to say Esteban and said Max instead, because how many times a day do you say one name and you mean another? So who knows, man? But that was a weird thing afterwards. You're just like, oh, wait, hold on. You're invested in, wow, okay, interesting if you actually meant that. So it was pretty wild.
Yeah. Surely he can't have meant Max. Like, there's no way.
No way.
I don't know. I mean, and surely Esteban makes sense because he is the reason that Esteban won. Full credit to Ocon. He raced a good race. He was very calm on the radio at all times. But
yeah, I
mean, if Lewis gets past Alonso first time of asking, it's a wrap. Like,
yeah, man.
And I'm so glad he didn't, because I think if there's one, I know I've said on the podcast a lot, I'm a massive fan of Esteban Ocon, the person, if not the driver. And if there's one person on the grid that deserved a win, I think it was Esteban Ocon. He so needed this.
Yeah.
Particularly after a really tough set of races. I think he just maybe found an extra sort of 5% to really help him.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have fun in Austria at all. I mean, those were not two good races. Those were not good races for him in the slightest. So to see him up on a one podium on the first slot, I guess, on a winner's podium was super nice. Gave you the same feeling as a Gasly, although the redemption story might not have been there, but it was still just amazing. It's always fun to see a first time winner, man. Because you get that pure elation and that pure joy that obviously you get if you're a repeat winner, but that first time, it's just like, oh man, that's so fun to watch, and you live it with them almost, and it's really cool.
Feels like the first time, like the old classic. It was actually written about first Grand Prix wins, and anyone who thinks about anything else needs to get their mind out of the gutter, of course. Yeah,
that was actually that's actually what that was about. Yeah. So, because the first time with the other stuff it's not all it's cracked up to be. There was my first time there was Incubus playing. That wasn't fun. That was an easy choice. So,
dearie me.
Just, so anyway, Carlos, what I thought was crazy was, but it wasn't surprising to me. It was crazy, but it wasn't surprising. Was Carlos Sainz calling out anticipation of that Hamilton 2 stop. And Ferrari probably knowing full well that that's what Hamilton's going to do, is try to pull out a second stint and catch up to everybody. Carlos tries to, I forget what lap it is, but he tries to anticipate it and tell his pit crew to bring him in for some freshies. So he's not just hanging out to dry once Hamilton catches up to him. But they didn't do that because they're Ferrari. And so, of course, Hamilton catches up to Sainz a little later after the Alonso jaunt. And I think the only redeeming quality was the fact that Alonso held him up for so long, because otherwise he would have gotten to him so much quicker. And so you're just like, man, it made it look not as bad as it was, but that like he didn't have the pace to stick it out. I feel like they should have brought him in, man. Like, why does Ferrari do this where they leave their drivers out? Carlos Sainz is an amazing strategist. Like, he's one of those guys that directs just as good as he acts, and so to speak, where he can call strategy almost as good as the pit lane. And so I feel like if you're on Ferrari pit lane, you're listening to Carlos Sainz more. And for whatever reason, I don't see them doing that a lot, which is really odd. Maybe they have, and they just aren't covering it, or maybe I didn't see it. But I feel like every time Sainz tries to call a strategy, they're not really fully on board with it. This is another one of those instances. And maybe if they had, we would have seen a lot better racing after Hamilton passed Alonso. And if Alonso hadn't made that mistake, maybe who knows what, because Alonso basically just slipped out of turn one, and that's why Hamilton got by very uncharacteristically. So, it's weird from Ferrari to keep seeing these track calls get overridden. You're just like, okay, man, what are y'all doing?
Well, I think in defense of Carlos is, we all know how hard it is to pass in at Hungary, and he was stuck behind, I think, Latifi. Latifi early in the race in the first stint, and he sort of said when Latifi boxed, I think Latifi was trying to get an undercut, and he said to Ferrari, leave me out, I've got more pace. And he tried to get an overcut, and he really did. He stepped on it, and he closed that gap, I think, to the top two really well. And then I think once you've already gone for the overcut and stayed out long enough, there's not enough laps for a two-stop to work. So as annoying as it is that it left him sort of unraceable at the end of the race, I understand why they did that. And still to come away with a P5, I think it was for Carlos Sainz, is a good result. That's
pretty solid.
I think where Ferrari expect to be most weekends, and particularly with Lando out the race, with Ricciardo out the race, and with Sainz out the race. That's good points. That is turned into a really close battle. I think it's so tough to choose. I think the McLaren is the more consistent car. I can't see the McLaren having a weekend like France for Ferrari where they both finished outside of the points. But at the same time, I can't see McLaren getting a pole position or getting a what should have been a race win for Carlos Sainz in Silverstone. And I think that's where Ricciardo really needs to start performing, because otherwise McLaren just going to hand that third spot to Ferrari. Both of their drivers are on such a good level this year. They're so close.
Yeah. And if we can get, I say we, like what am I in Ferrari? If Ferrari can get a good car under them, not that it's not an improvement from last year, but if they can get a good car under them for next year too, with the toss up, who knows who's going to be where. But if you've got a competitive car next year, Ricciardo gets his stuff together. And so you've got a competitive McLaren, you've got a competitive Ferrari. All of a sudden you've got 8 cars up front, and then you've got a midfield tucked up under that with the AlphaTauris. And if Alfa Romeo can make some improvements, if Williams makes substantial improvements next year, then you've got a dense midfield as well. And you're basically doing what the FIA is trying to accomplish anyway, which is compress this field and compress this grid, make everything more rich, more dense, and with just better racing. And so you want to see the talent match of Sainz and Leclerc matched up with the car to complement that. And I think that's probably what Ferrari's trying to do, is to give them a car where they could take advantage of this lineup, because to not have a car that's competitive like it was in the earlier stages of this hybrid era is just a disservice. It's a disservice to all of humanity, is really what I'm trying to say. So Ferrari, love that you get your historic money from whoever. Did you know that Ferrari just gets money for being Ferrari? Like a historic Formula One team.
Really?
Them and Williams do it. Like they just get money. I don't know where it's from. I don't know what video I saw it on, but apparently Williams and Ferrari get like historic commission money just for existing and still being in Formula One. So Listen, guys, use your money, put it towards the car, or else you're deserving us. You're deservicing humanity, and we will hold you responsible for crimes against humanity, basically, next year is what we're saying.
So we should.
And we really should. Nomination, write it in. Can you write in a ballot for crimes against humanity? Is that a thing?
Why not? I mean, like, I heard the Nuremberg trials are actually run by like a public vote, like the X Factor. You ring up, and if it's like, for hugging, press 01. For electric chair, press 02.
We'll start a GoFundMe for Ferrari crimes against humanity, and that's something that people will viscerally get on board with.
I think let's get a disclaimer out there now. We do not want to hang Matteo Binotto or any other Ferrari member before we get sued. But,
no, yeah. Oh man, is that the punishment for crimes against humanity? Oh, that's steep. I feel like okay.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it. Let's hit him where it hurts. no time on Drive to Survive 2022. All right. That's where.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah.
That's
no time. All right. So anyway, you got that going on. We'll see what happens. I would like to see Ferrari come back second half of the season.
Yeah.
Reinvigorated, renewed with a new sense of vigor, and see him up there at the front. We'll see. Time will tell, but I'm not really putting my chips in the basket just yet. So I'm looking at my notes. Hamilton recovery. Yeah, we already talked about it. Look, greatest driver of all time. Anyone surprised? I'm not surprised. So put that car in clean air. It's going to do what it did. I thought we were good. I thought we were Hamilton free for the championship points, and he dropped back to last. And I was like, cool. The point loss won't be that bad. It'll be like Baku again, where both of them dip out. And so we don't see a huge advantage, but dude, just coming back to third. And that whole thing, dude, what was wrong with him after the race? Did you see that? Did you notice how physically shaken he was after that race?
Yeah, just exhausted. I mean, it's such a tough race, Hungary. The corners sort of don't stop coming, and for a guy, I mean, Lewis is 36, it must be taking its toll when you've been being bounced around in race cars for 30 years,
I am 37, and I ate a 12-inch sub yesterday and felt like I was going to die and then fall through the ground. So I can only imagine what it's like being in top physical shape as a Formula One driver. I relate a lot, look, Lewis Hamilton driving 70 laps and me eating a 12-inch double meat capicola turkey roast beef with hot peppers, vinegar and oil, mayo, mustard, and double pepper jack cheese on wheat bread. It's the same thing when you're talking about performance issues and performance setbacks. So, I relate. And so, Lewis, you need any tips? Reach out. Okay. Slipstreampodcast@gmail.com. So, exactly. Or hit us up on Twitter, the Slipcast. Just look us up. I forget our handle. I don't know what our handle is, but great job on the Twitter, by
I did try.
You've been doing it well. I get on there. I'm a little snarky. You do the Twitter well. I'm just going to leave it to you. You got the memes.
It's my Gen Z vibes. You can hate Gen Z, but we've got memes down to it.
I don't hate Gen Z. I don't hate Gen Z.
You haven't spent enough time with Gen Z then. So
yeah, I probably shouldn't. That'd be a little inappropriate. So
I take that back.
So, don't want to be accused of grooming. So it's but yeah, man, we'll keep you on the Twitter. I'll stay off of it. That's your world. I'll just do the Photoshop, and you take the rest of the Twitter. What else we got? Man, Seb, let's just say it. It's gonna hurt to say it out loud because I haven't said it out loud since it happened. But Seb DQ'd with the fuel issue for Aston Martin Racing, and man, I feel like I just walked into a funeral. I don't.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's difficult. It's a difficult experience, and it's just a difficult thing to work through. It's a test of character, really. It's a test of mental strength and fortitude and resolve. Really, how are you going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with this? You could see my Aston Martin cars, and the one on the bottom lit up by my ceiling fan. It's obscured, and that's just a highlight, I guess. That was intentional. Actually, I did that intentionally. To highlight, how we lost it this weekend. So, look, it's fine. It's fine. We'll move on, and we'll be fine. It's fine. Listen, it's fine. It's fine. Am I about to cry right now? No, it's fine. Okay. Do I hear sad fiddle music playing in the background again? No, I don't. It's fine. Throw on the Spice Girls and spice up your life. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Of course.
Yeah. So
Slipstream podcast brought to you by the Spice Girls.
Slipstream podcast brought to you by the Spice Girls. Spice up your life. Christian Horner probably has something to say about that. So, yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see. Actually, no, seriously, Aston's like they're appealing it. Did you hear about this? So they're appealing it. They're trying to literally flip the car over and shake it like a mason jar to try to get the rest of the fuel out. I don't think that's going to yield anything. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, I'm not getting my hopes up as an Aston Martin fan, but we'll see. I don't expect it. So low expectations, then you're not disappointed, but you could be surprised. So we'll see. But yeah, man, we're good, man. 45 minutes. Let's wrap it up. You got some goodies to go eat, don't you?
Yeah, I've got sticky beef noodles, which normally that's quite exciting from a white suburban mum. You never know. I feel like there's going to be a way to sneak like sweet corn in there, because there's nothing. I think
so.
There's nothing. There's no better iconic duo than white suburban mums and sweet corn. So I know
that's what Bourdain did. That's what Bourdain did. He improvised. Okay, he improvised. Exactly. He shot from the hip, and all the great chefs do. Real quick before I let you go, let's go over just one article real quick. We'll glaze over it like that pork you're about to eat, and then we'll talk about MWF1 first season. We'll just talk about the winners real quick. But look, courtesy of BeyondTheFlag.com, Jacques Villeneuve weighing in with a little Mercedes prediction. Apparently, he doesn't believe that Williams or anybody else will take that seat, or Bottas. George Russell or Bottas will take the Mercedes seat in 2022. He thinks it's going to go to Lance Stroll. And is that like, what is that? Is that the Canadian in him? Like just trying to like stand more Canadians or something? Or like, what's even going on with that, dude? It's such a bizarre call. And then also you think about it, you're like, wait.
No, there's no wait. There's no think. Lance Stroll is lucky to be at Aston Martin. There is no way.
Yeah.
Toto Wolff, the most results-driven guy in the business, he would sacrifice his own children if it meant gaining the 10th over Red Bull. The guy is, and I feel like he would despise Lance Stroll. I think for the record, I like Lance Stroll. I think he's very, I'm not going to say underrated, but I'd say overhated as a driver. I think he's got his qualities. But if that happens, I'm just going to watch Formula E full time. I'm not interested in F1 if Lance Stroll wins a World Championship.
I read that and I was like, is he smoking? Is he smoking something? Like, is he okay? So should somebody like check on Jacques Villeneuve and see if he's like sane at this point? Because that's the most bizarre prediction I've ever seen in my entire life. They don't need the money. Lance Stroll's dad owns Aston Martin. He's not going to go where his dad doesn't own the team. And also, I don't think he has the talent, quite honestly, to be in a Mercedes seat. He just doesn't. I think Bottas deserves it before Lance Stroll. So it's just, that was the weirdest thing. I just came across that before we started taping. I was like, well, we got to talk about this because this is insane. MWF1 first week, it was in Spain, slippery track. Always a fun time when you go to Spain, especially in this new game where you're just like, the consistency is everything. And so I did all right, man. P8. I fell back, lost my front wing, and fell back to last place. Then recovered a P8 because there's always safety cars and multiplayer races. So yeah, man, no glitches. I don't know if you played multiplayer glitching or experienced the glitches on this new game, but Cody's, what are we doing? Okay, let's get look. I'm glad we got the breaking point. Okay, I'm glad we got our story mode to satiate the Drive to Survive drama fetishizers that want to play the game. But like, what about the multiplayer? What about us, huh? Let's fix the multiplayer. And if not, then we'll draw up a GoFundMe for Crimes Against Humanity against Codemasters. How about that? So real quick, D1, our winners from last night, Mystic Joker taking D1, D2, Murph and Selly, D3, Raid Khan, D4, V Shoots Gween, which, hey man, nice name. Don't know how that name even came into existence, but fun to say. Division 5, Shelly the Turtle. Hey, freaking, I try not to cuss this podcast, but sometimes it just comes out. So try to keep this family friendly. But anyway, shout out to all our winners last night, Midwest F1, solid rounds, and we'll dip into more coverage as the season goes. Oh, hi. So earlier we were recording and James was mid-sentence. And as I was watching him give his apology to Nicholas Latifi, the power in my house just completely went out for like an hour. And so like for the next 30 seconds after it went out, I was just looking at the blank screen, wondering if we had just lost the entire 50 minutes of a very fun episode. Thankfully, we hadn't, obviously, if you watched this far. But anyway, I just wanted to come and say bye to you officially. Going straight to music mid-sentence would probably be pretty funny. And we probably should do that, honestly. We just probably should go straight to music. But I just wanted to come and sign off real quick. Like all the stuff, subscribe to the channel if you want. All of the show notes are there. All the links to get in touch with us if you want. Hit us up on Twitter, Twitch, the YouTubes, whatever you may please. We will be back before Spa. Probably be a little summer break episode. And yeah, until we see you then, keep pushing.